Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got another important questions video in relation to Necron units, and today it's the turn of the Canoptek Scarab Swarms. So I believe I've got 8 questions lined up today, such as why do we need them? We've got alternatives for those uses. We've also got should you always blow one up with the self-destruction ability, and other questions like that. Guys, while I've got your attention, make sure you are subscribing down below. I think there's about 50% of the viewers aren't subscribed yet, so please do me a huge favour and keep me motivated to keep releasing these videos if you are subscribing down below. Before we do get into today's video, of course, a quick word about our sponsors. So today I wanted to show off these charcoal style dice. They feel very different to your standard dice. They've got almost like a rubbery feel to these. And they've got the Necron version as well as the Death Guard version, because they're sort of one of the in things at the moment. Let's give these a roll and see how we go with these. And as usual, oh no, that's not too bad. I got 4 6s out of all that. That's not too bad. If I was playing Nurgle, none. So that's why I don't play Death Guard. But yeah, get these. These are available at the Baron of Dice. That's where you get all your premium dice. The link will be down in the description down below. Make sure you are checking out the Baron of Dice if you need some dice. Right then, let's get into these 8 questions then. The first one is, why do we need Scarab Swarms? Very basic question. Why do we need them? Let's get my phone out of the way. There's a few reasons to take them. There's a few battlefield roles. I know that's not the right terminology, but there's a few reasons why you would use them within a list. The first one is, well, the main reason I'd say is for screening. For 40 points, you can get a unit of 3 of these to screen off everything that you've got that's valuable. It could be a Catan, a Silent King, Doomsday Arcs, maybe it's just, you know, your battle line units like Immortals that you really value in a certain matchup, etc. You're screening off, just for a number of things in fact. Let's break this down even further. What are you screening off? You could be screening off ranged attacks. So for example, if you're going up against a unit that's got a load of flamers that are only, say, 12 inches, if you've got your Canoptek Scarab Swarms ahead of, say, your Immortals, your opponent may not be able to get into position to be able to fire within 12 inches of your Immortals. So that's the ranged type of screening, but that's not as common as what the next type of screening is, which is the charging screening. Let's say you're going up against a big orc mob and it's a load of Death Dreads, and they're looking to charge in and get hold of your, it could be your Doomsday Arcs, etc. Now they only need to be within 12 inches to make a valid charge. A lot of the times, like for example, orcs do have re-rolls to their charge if they call a war, and they've got +1s to charge. There's all sorts of things you can do with charge rolls. So you want to prevent your opponent from getting in to your juicy stuff. So what you simply do is you get your 40-point Canoptek Scarab Swarm unit, put them up ahead, and it breaks away any type of straight line movement to the stuff that you don't want getting charged. It's as simple as that, especially when you've got terrain features in the way, ruins, and then you've got some Scarab Swarms that are blocking up an avenue. Those Death Dreads simply can't get there. They've got to take a turn defeating the Scarabs. Now they may do it at range with other units, and that's sort of one way to eliminate the Scarabs. Deal with them at range, and then you can open up the doors for the charge. But they've already done the movement phase at that point. The shooting phase comes after the movement phase, so they've not quite moved into the right position. Therefore their charge move is going to be slightly longer. So that's another good reason in terms of screening. Now there's actually a third type of screening, which is like zonal screening, which is more to do with deep strikes. Now you guys know, if you played the Hypercrypt Legion, we love a good old deep strike with death marks and hex mark destroyers, and you throw them in and you screw them behind enemy lines and so on. It doesn't always work if your opponent has screened off their area or certain areas of the battlefield. Yes, we've got Cosmic Precision and we can get in 6 inches rather than 9. But why these Scarabs are so important for denying that space is 40 points. 40 points for a unit of 3. You can separate them all into a triangle shape 2 inches apart, because then they'll be within unit coherency. So that, plus the 9 inches from the actual deep strike that they need to stay away from the unit, that's quite a lot of ground that they've covered for just 40 points. You get a couple of units of these, one on either side of your deployment zone, and then hide them behind a terrain feature so they're completely out of line of sight. That's going to be a real tough ask for a deep striking unit of, say, Terminators to break in. They're going to have to do it the hard way or try and eliminate the scarabs that are hidden behind that wall. It's quite a hard ask. So that, I think, is probably the number one screening type for them, in my opinion, is the whole anti-deep strike stuff. So that's why I believe we need them. There are a few other reasons, such as melee attacks and so on. We'll get onto that sort of later on down in the video, but that's the real main uses for Canoptek Scarabs. What objectives can Canoptek Scarabs score? Now, they've got no OC, so on paper, without buffing them, they can't do a lot of the secondaries. They can't do anything relating to actions because that requires OC. They can't do anything that relates to holding objectives because that requires OC. But there are some that they can do, and some of these are more difficult than others because of their lack of strength, only strength 2. They can do behind enemy lines. It's just a unit that counts there. Overwhelming force, you do need to kill a unit on an objective. They're not the most killiest, so that's quite difficult. The same with bring it down, assassination, no prisoners, mark for death. That's all relating to killy stuff. Engage on all fronts they can do. It's just a unit again, and areas now just in the centre of the battlefield doesn't require an objective or any OC. And Cull the Horde I've just thrown in because I nearly forgot about it. That requires killing. They're not likely to do those ones, but they can finish off a unit, I suppose. So I've put them in the list because that's, it is a true reflection of what they can do. So that's what they can do. They obviously can't relate to a lot of the primary missions because, again, they relate to having OC. Some of them don't, but most of them do. But there are a handful of things that they can do in terms of scoring. Ever since they lost OC, yeah, not as useful as they used to be in like 9th edition. Do we have any alternatives in that role? So the role of screening is mainly where I'm looking at here. I've picked out 2 for this video. There may be others that you can think of, but I've got 2 here on the screen. The first one is the fortification. You can take them in individuals now, which is the conversions of Dominion. A unit of, well, 1 unit of 1 is 60 points. And that's going to be 20 points more than the Canoptek Scarabs, 3 of them. But you get toughness 9. You get a 3+ save and 7 wounds. You can't move. They do have a range attack, in fact, which I always seem to forget about. It's a strength 6 weapon with 3 damage. You know, it's an alternative option. Some people like to go for it, but I like the fact that you can move. These things are sitting ducks, and I don't know. It's a bit like that. Some people like them, some people don't. The one that I do really like, though, is the Locust Destroyers, or Locust Destroyer is what I should have said, because you can take them in individuals, but it's slightly more expensive if you take one. I believe it's 35 points. I'm going to have to check that because I'm sure it went up. I'm sure it went up for one like quite a while ago now. Locust Destroyers. 35, yeah, if you want 2 it's 60, but for an individual one, Games Workshop identified that they're quite useful on their own. And this is exactly why they're useful, because they're an individual infantry model. No, they're not, they're mounted, take that back. They're an individual mounted model, but they've got OC. They've got OC, so they can do some secondaries, more than the list that I just provided a minute ago. They've got a ranged attack, which is, decent enough with the Gauss cannon. You're not going to do a massive amount with one single Gauss cannon, but it can do something. It can maybe get its points back, in fact. It's got a bit of toughness there as well, with toughness 6 and a 3+ armor save with 3 wounds. So you can kind of argue they may hang around a little bit longer than Scarabs maybe could, but the area that they can screen is slightly reduced because it's just one model, one base. Yes, it's a bigger base, but it's one model. You can't triangulate one model and then do the 9-inch for deep strikes and stuff. But it's an alternative, and I quite like it. I prefer to go max, crazy with them, take 6 with a Lord, but if you did want to take them as individual models to do the screening, hide one in a corner behind the ruin, it will do the exact same job. Next question, how can we buff them? How can we buff these Scarab Swarms? Now the first one is the obvious one. I'm just going to quickly mention this here because there is a whole question related to this in a moment, but the Canoptek spiders of course will relate because you can bring them back, but we'll talk about that later on, so don't worry, I've not forgot. Now the biggest flaw to these scarabs, as we've already said, is the lack of OC 0, and as you can see on the screen here, in order to do an action you do need a characteristic of more than 1, well more than 0. 1 plus is what I meant. So you need at least 1 to do an action. You can actually give these guys, or these little critters, OC. You can, there's many ways in fact. One of the ways is actually within their own data card, which is their ability Chittering Swarm. It's quite easy to brush past this ability because it's like a secondary part of an ability. The first part is just getting -1 to the OC of enemy units within engagement range. But the second part to the same ability is while a Cryptek is within 6, you get +1 to your OC. So if there's a Technomancer, maybe it's Orokin, a Plasmancer, a Chronomancer, whatever Cryptek you can think of, Mr. Illumina Zares, any Cryptek, you're going to give the Canoptek Scarabs OC all of a sudden, providing that they're within 6, which means all of a sudden they can do actions because they've now got a characteristic of 1. Like it. Let's put that on silent, that'd be easier, wouldn't it? So they've changed the characteristic to 1, so therefore they can do actions. There's another way to actually improve the OC, which is with a Catacomb Command, but I can't get my words out today, a Catacomb Command Barge. With the carrier wave ability, it's an aura, Necron units within 6 is a +1 to the OC. You can actually stack this with a Cryptek as well to have them to have 2 OC, which is kind of cool. Command barges are not often used outside of the Star Shatter arsenal, but maybe you could bring your scarabs within the Star Shatter arsenal just to be an action monkey and have them swarming around the command barge with your Doomsday Arcs and so on. That could be a little thing. Now, once you've given them OC, I've provided it's not a new list, it's just an additional list to add to the old list I've just provided. These are the objectives that you can all of a sudden now be doing with your scarabs. You've got Containment, which is an action on the sides of the battlefield. Defend Stronghold because they've got OC on their home objective. Storm Hostile objective because you've got OC. Sabotage, you can action. Extend battle line, you kind of get the picture. OC gives you stuff to do. Recover assets, establish locus, secure no man's land, cleanse. And I've added at the bottom primary mission objectives. Just simply gaining like 4 VP for holding an objective, they can all of a sudden now do it, which is kind of good. So it's a huge bonus to give these little 40-point units OC. Yes, you've got to spend, on a Cryptek or a command barge, but a lot of the time you have at least the Crypteks within your list already. If you've got a Technomancer with some Wraiths, you can follow it up with those Canoptek Scarabs, and they can be the action monkey and the Wraiths do all the work. So it kind of already works within your list. So let's go back to that Canoptek spider then. So do we need a Canoptek spider? Is it a necessity? Do we really need it? Now let's quickly go through the ability in case you're not aware of it. They've got the ability Canoptek Swarm. In your command phase you basically bring back a Canoptek Scarab Swarm model into the unit that's within 6 inches. That's pretty good because that's a 4 wound model coming straight back in for nothing, for free, because you're also going to have reanimation protocols, don't forget, and maybe you've even got a reanimator. You can really go hard on this if the unit does survive. Now if you're taking a 3 model unit of Canoptek Scarabs, the answer is no, it's too expensive. The spiders, I believe, I want to say 75, but I'm going to have to check, it's always best to be right. 75 points for the spider. Just to accommodate a 40-point unit of scarabs is probably not worth it, unless you've got other ideas for the spider. Maybe it's following a Silent King, or whatever. You might have a different plan for the spider, and then it's just a bonus to have the scarabs nearby. But if you're solely bringing the spider for a 3-man unit of scarabs, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Even if you've got a 6 model unit of scarabs, it might not be worth it because that's still only 80 points. And if the unit gets wiped and your entire plan was to keep bringing them back one at a time, you've just kind of defeated your own plan there. If you had 2 units nearby, Yeah, I think that is worth it by then, because you're kind of investing a little bit harder in the points there. 160 points for 2 units of 6. A spider isn't going to harm them there. If you're taking the Canoptek Court as well, yeah, because now they're going to be getting rerolls to their melee, then it becomes a little bit more valuable. And like I said already, if you've got a reanimator as well, double reanimation, you could be bringing a couple of models back, which is quite useful. But for a 3-man screen, no, absolutely not. Should we always blow one up? Now, the Scarabs have got a second ability, which is self-destruction. Basically, in the fight phase, within engagement range, you can blow one of your models up. It will die, it's gone. But you roll a d6 on a 2, 3, 4 or 5, it's d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it's 3 mortal wounds. But if it's a vehicle, you +1 to that result. Excuse me. So if you roll a 5 on a vehicle, it's just 3 mortal wounds. That's good, but should we always blow one Scarab up? I think this is quite an important question, but it takes a little bit more than just a simple yes or no, because you've got to really assess the situation first. Remember, these Scarabs have 6 attacks base and lethal hits, which is quite important. But more important to that, they're a body of 4 wounds. Now, if you're going up against like a 5-man unit that isn't massive on the melee threat, you're probably going to survive. Sometimes it will work in your favour to blow up, and sometimes it won't. Maybe the reanimation is more valuable. But if you've narrowed down your chances of the unit surviving the fight phase, then you're not going to get to your reanimation step in your command phase. So you need to kind of assess, am I going to survive? If I am going to survive, then blow it up. If I'm not going to survive, will it help me survive? Don't blow it up, kind of thing. Because you need to get to your reanimation step in order to bring them back. That's the way I look at it. Now, if you're going up against a unit that's, Khorne Berserkers have charged in, you're dead, right? You are absolutely going to get annihilated. I played them recently and they had like a bazillion attacks. That you can have bigger units now with Berserkers, and they had a zillion attacks on the charge, and it was just like, yeah, they're dead, right? You may as well blow one up. They're dead anyway. You may as well get some damage output out, kill a model, there it goes. But in other situations, you may just be able to survive, so it's not worth the blow up. You may as well survive, hold down. You've got 4 wounds that they've got to chew through, 4 extra wounds if you don't blow up. Even if you've got 1 model left that didn't blow up, and it comes to your command phase, you reanimate, you're going to be able to fall back in your movement phase potentially, and then you live to fight another day. Your opponent has to scratch around for another turn trying to get rid of them. So it is always worth assessing the situation a little bit more before you just go, yeah, I'm going to just roll the dice and blow up. You might roll a 1 as well, which happens to me all the time. All the time. If you do this with a spider nearby, it's quite cool, because if you know you're going to survive and you've got a Canoptek spider nearby, well, you're guaranteed to get the blown up model back next turn, which is kind of cool. So that's another thing to assess alongside it as well. Do you have a spider nearby? Are the Canoptek Scarabs better in 3s or 6s? We've kind of been back and forward throughout the video about this. 3s and 6s, screens for 3s, 6 for like the damage, I suppose. The chunkier, you could have a chunky screen of 6. That'll take up a lot of space. I suppose not so much for the deep strike aspect of denying deep strike, because you don't need 6. But for blocking up loads of area in the no man's land, potentially blocking movement for your opponent to get into a nice charge range, 6 would be a bit more beneficial. But at that point, I'd rather probably just take 2 units of 3. I know you're more likely to die and not use reanimation protocols, but they can act independently. You've got 2 units, 1 can go left, 1 can go right. You don't have to stick them all as one clump of a unit. So it depends on what you want to do, but if you want them purely for the melee, which you shouldn't do, but maybe you do, I don't know, then you go for the 6, I suppose. So speaking of melee, are they actually useful in melee? So they've got the feeder mandibles, 6 attacks base, hitting on 5, strength 2, no AP, 1 damage with lethal. Now the hitting on 5s is literally irrelevant. You may as well be hitting on 6s, because as soon as you make a hit roll of a 5, you very likely need 6s again to wound against most of the game, unless you're coming up against like Rippers or toughness 3 Guardians. But that'll be 5s, but it's still difficult, right? So you kind of want your lethal hits. Now if you go full hog with these and you take a unit of 6, that's 36 attacks. If you're playing in the Canoptek core and you've got the power matrix unlocked for the unit, then you're fully re-rolling. Now what you would do, even if you got a 5, I would re-roll it. Because again, you're going to need a 6 to wound anyway, so you may as well just fish for the lethal hits. On average, out of 36 dice, 6 of them will be lethal, and then with the re-rolls you probably get 5 more as an average. That will give you 11 on average lethal hits against any type of toughness. It doesn't matter at that point because you're not rolling against toughness. It could be against a giant knight, it could be against a load of rippers, whatever. You're going to get 11 on average lethal hits, which is a fair amount. I mean, if you're going up against Space Marines, like your standard Space Marine troops, you probably kill a few bodies, and they're about 20 points ish, maybe a bit less per model. If you take out a few of them per turn or per fight phase, you're getting your points back. And the thing is, what you need to remember is you've not picked your Canoptek Scarab Swarms for the melee output. You've picked them for the anti-deep strike and the screening. So they've already done their job already. If they're within engagement range, it means they've already done their job. Your opponent has to spend another turn chewing through them before they've got to the juicy stuff. So they've already, mission accomplished as far as they're concerned. It's just an added bonus for them to be now fighting and making their points back as well. Now, I did mention here though that there was a unit of 6. Obviously, if you're doing it in 3s, you can half that instantly. So instead of 11, you can say it's going to be like 5 or 6 lethal hits. And this is all without the explosion, by the way, which you need to assess as you go, as we said. But even with the explosion, let's just say you do one explosion and you kill a Marine and you take 20 points out. You've just paid half the points come back, basically. It's a 40-point unit and you've just killed a 20-point model with one explosion. You've done the screening work and your opponent is spending another turn having to take them out. Mission accomplished as far as scabs go. So for me, they're great. They're good. But as far as useful in melee, it's enough to maybe scrape their points back. Don't count on them doing a lot though. That's what I'd say. Guys, that is the end of today's video. Make sure you are subscribed on your exits. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.